Thank you, and welcome to the second part of the first day of the workshop. And we are going to continue with conversations that we started this morning with the presentations that happened this morning. So we are going to listen to three other presenters, and it's my pleasure to introduce Mirian Carballo from Universidad de Córdoba, and also director of the red RIHUA in Environmental Humanities from Córdoba. And I have to say that it's the first Environmental Humanities network in Latin America. So this is really important and a big step. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Asu. Thank you, everybody. I need to set the PowerPoint. Something I didn't say this morning is that I work in literature. I said that, so that is my area. Dice Carballo. There. And something else that I didn't say is that until September, I was working in the University of Córdoba, the National University of Córdoba, as part of the rector's management staff, and I was in charge of internationalization. So I wanted to refer to something like that in terms of public connections with the public world. Pero esa es la segunda o tercera. Esa. Well, just to set the context, because I want to establish the needs of the National University of Córdoba, the rationale behind the policies and the projects, and that's why I need to introduce the university. So it's a very old university. It was established in 1613. It is, I guess it's this? No. No. Okay, there we go. So it's in the Córdoba is in the middle of Argentina. And it's as I was saying, it's a very old university, very large. I wanted you to see that. We have 136,000 students, 10,000 professors around, 5,000 administrative staff. So it's a very large university. It's a very comprehensive university. It has 15 faculties, high schools, lots of research centers, museums, libraries, astronomy, observatories, laboratories, a natural reserve, and a multimedia center. So that is for you to have the idea of the number of the, and it was established as a World Heritage, Humanity, yes, heritage by UNESCO. So heritage, I think, is patrimonio. So it's World Heritage by UNESCO in the old buildings. So this is not all like that. So I wanted to think about a number of projects that are taken, that are carried out there. And the question was, how does the university relate and face environmental problems? And it has to do with this rationale. So I mentioned the Anthropocene as a context. I know it's a debatable term, then I will go back to that. This is a very important context, and it is related to some of the issues that Florencia was discussing this morning. This was a conference of this was a conference on higher education for Latin America and the Caribbean that took place in 2018 in Córdoba. It was organized by YESALC UNESCO and the National University, and it celebrated also the anniversary of the Reform student movement. It was the centenary. And the other frame of reference is the Sustainable Development Goals. So I think those three things sort of guided the projects during these last years. And I would say these most of all. Well, thinking in terms of the Anthropocene, I am speaking about in terms of this term, in terms of a context, as the thinking in terms of the planet, how it has been affected in its structure, in its biophysical mass, and on account of man's activity. So I know that the big issue is who is responsible for this, that the anthropos is not every man, but I wanted to take it as a state of affairs. So things have changed, and we know that it is on account of our civilization. So now there is a need of redesigning, re-steering models of development, of coexistence with the environment, with other species. There is a responsibility for future generations, and there are urgent repairs that need to be done by science, education, knowledges, arts and works with extensive communities. This is very important. And this is what relates us to the public, let's say. So inside, of course, we owe a lot to our students, but we also owe a lot to the community that supports us, because we are a public university. And this was the second frame of reference, and this is a conference. So the most important statement in that conference was that higher education for Latin American and the Caribbean is a human right, is a universal right, a social good, and it's the responsibility of the state. So that means that we provide free education for as many as we can. And so there are lots of policies that have an emphasis on an open and free access policy of higher education to everybody. And it's not only that the university is open, but you have to guarantee that the population can remain in universities. That is our main problem in Latin American universities. Something that, another statement and another axis that was discussed in this conference was education like an engine for development, and development in terms of the SDGs. And so we are in need of innovation, independent science to the service of the people. So it's not science, though there may be theoretical science, but science responding to the needs of the community. Open and participatory science. So now there is a lot of discussion on this idea of the open science, and there are lots of things that we could speak about that, but that will take us away, though it is more or less in the track that Flor discussed. Education to improve the socially vulnerable groups. So that is outreach actions. Intercultural education that is taking into account the different identities and groups that we have in our societies, with incorporation of traditional knowledges, and a lot of emphasis on autonomy, because the student movement really asked for autonomy, for self-government. So it was the recognition and the acknowledgement, or it paid homage to those principles. Of course, we have already discussed this, the SDGs as the type of agenda that connects us with the world. So we have a regional and relevance, where education should be relevant in terms of our region and in terms of the global issues. And I want you to remember this and this, because these are some of the things that I will show here, and well, and of course, climate action. So we could summarize the program of the plans during these 6 years, thinking in terms of initiatives for an inclusive and environmentally concerned education. And remember that this is the motto of the SDGs, leave no one behind, which is, of course, inclusiveness. So inclusion, quality, and relevance in terms of education. Okay, so this is one of the experiments, let's say, and in terms of creating a different kind of interaction with other groups that allows, I will speak about this in general terms about coils, I will explain what that is. Maybe some people know about it. And then I will refer to a specific experience. So COIL is a collaborative online international learning experience. It's really an online class that you share with someone else in another university. You organize your project. There it is, in fact. It's based on a project that you have to solve. It takes place within the curriculum that already exists. So that makes it easier. So you can match your class with somebody else's class, and it may be the same subject or it may be something complementary, but you don't need to have exactly the same subject. I will show you the example later. There is collaboration between faculty and students. It is content-based learning, but it's also intercultural learning. So it relates to the objectives I spoke before in terms of the CRES conference. And it supports the other values: equity, access, and student-centered learning. And in the UNC, we are training professors to follow that methodology. They have support, and we belong to one of the nets that make professors circulate and share needs in terms of this project. So I wanted to show you this course. This was a course that I really experienced with the University of León. So the proposal was between a professor in University of León and my group. And the name of the course was Native Culture, an Escapable Intercultural Relation. And I want you to notice that in her case, the subject was social linguistics. And in my case, it was literature. So we had this shared class with students. I teach my subject in English, and her subject was also in English. So we had to agree at the time that we had to share. We had to agree as regards the language. We had to agree as regards the contents we were going to share. And the contents were focused on the, environmental concerns, because she's also a member of our net. So we agreed on this focus. But she was mainly interested in intercultural components as well, because she was doing that for teaching teachers to experience things in terms of intercultural concerns. So there was content that was shared: ecofeminism, post-humanism, biodiversity and bioethics, and globalization and interculturalism. So that was explored by means of fictional text. But as the students had to work on their own, they had to exchange ideas. They could get together with WhatsApp, with Meets, with whatever. And we also had classes together. They developed these other skills, which are part of the international and intercultural skills: collaborative work, intercultural skills, because they came from different cultures, academic cultures, and different cultures. Awareness. And this also awoke awareness of cultural differences and adaptation to differences. Okay, so that was an experiment from the pedagogical point of view. And from the point of view of research and outreach, well, we have this, which is more common. So we coordinate this net that I was speaking about. This is an Ibero-American net. And there we share with all the members, their research in different areas. And I think the valuable thing there is that people come from different fields of the environmental humanities. So we grow by hearing their research. Like here, that you start thinking about something else where you can go in this exchange. And we also have something that is called Aula Verde, which is a green class, let's say. It is an open class to the community. So we invite researchers from different fields. It can be humanities and sciences. and we post dialogues, and that is open for everybody to raise awareness and sometimes to bring people that have their problems in these cases. So that has to do with research and outreach. The other program that I think is very good so I wanted you to see how the SDGs relate all these issues that have to do with justice, with inclusion, with solving problems of people, real problems, and well, by providing an education which is of quality and which is relevant. And this is a special program that the university started, which is called the Folk Universities Program, Universidades Populares, which meant that the National University of Córdoba signed agreements with 210 towns and town halls in the province. We delivered more than 2,000 courses, short courses, but courses that were demanded by the people from the province with this number of certificates and this number of trainers. So it was really an effort to go out of the boundaries of the university, which sometimes was physical and sometimes was digital. So this is the program, and the main aim was to promote the insertion in the community and view of the local, regional, and national problems in development. It was built upon the institutions that were there, the popular libraries, the sports clubs. So they acted as power stations of citizen construction and educational organizations with cultural autonomy. So they exercised their power of choice, their right to demand for a good education or for training, but it was mainly on the line of lifelong learning education. So for people who maybe had gone to university or didn't go to university, but needed to be reskilled or upskilled, needed specific things with, well, the changing panorama of education nowadays. So these are some of the subjects the courses that we delivered. I wanted to highlight some of these, but I couldn't. I wanted to highlight environment and sustainability, tourism, health, gender and diversity. So these were the courses they demanded. So it was not the university that decided we were going to teach that, but this was agreed through their own institutions. And the interesting thing as well is that there was this bridge between the state, civil society, enterprises, trade unions. This was something that we were discussing, this research that ends up in a rubbish bin. And this is what we are trying to build, this virtuous circle. And this is another very good program, which is called Root Program, part of the Folk program. And the main aim of this program is on government management. So this is a real exercise on new ways of managing societies, communities, with a lot of participation from the communities. And so this is part of a program that the university has and arranges with these towns. And the idea is to build an open kind of government with a participatory budget. I think that is one of the greatest experiences of community exercise, and the laboratories for sustaining these changes and for innovation. So there are courses that train the community to do that. And I will show you two examples of this. So there is a platform where the towns vote for they propose projects for how they are going to spend their budget, and they vote their projects on this platform. And this was one of the projects that they proposed. TR project to reduce, reutilize, and recycle nature in our hands with that, with art as well. And this was a budget, and this was approved. So people had to enter here and vote. And according to that, they decided the budget. So this is really a practice that is participatory and is part of the exercise of autonomy. So it takes us back to the ideals of CRES. This is another project that is in the platform. I don't remember the names of the cities, but small towns in Córdoba voted for these different projects. This is directly related to the environment, a project that proposed aeolic and solar generator with proper public lighting, well, for the sake of clean energy. And this was voted, and the project is finished. Okay, and I think this is it. I don't want to take, well, the conclusions. There are other options, other actions, of course, that are being taken really, for instance, in the design of the campus. There are attempts at really thinking in terms of, remember that I told you, remember this, the SDG 16 and 17? 16 has to do with this, open institutions, transparent institutions, just institutions, so that the ROOT program tries to aid and to support this kind of exercise. And so there is sort of a top-down design in following these policies, but in any case, these policies were agreed on during the conference that was really attended by universities from all Latin America and the Caribbean. So it was a statement that was agreed with everybody. Then you had to follow your own roadmap. And in order to interact, as Stephen was proposing today with the bridge, there is this type of program that tries to, for instance, in the case of the COIL classes, to have the students design and work in terms of a problem, a different kind of pedagogy with innovation, with participation, all these kind of programs that go to the towns. And you cannot imagine the sense of pride and the people inside the province feel that they are taken into account for the first time. I have been in some of these meetings, and they feel that the National University of Córdoba is going there. So we are here for the first time. So because of course students can go there, or anybody can attend the university, but sometimes it's very difficult for people to travel, to stay in Córdoba. So this is a way of taking the university and these problems, these issues to everybody. And so these are the principles: inclusiveness as a rule, sustainability as the north, because even the new building is being designed in terms of this. The water will be recycled. The trees that have been taken down in order to expand the campus are being grown in another green area. So there are, even the administration has become online instead of having paper. So all these measures have to do with these changes. Participatory activities, which is in line with the Leave No One Behind, folk university programs, roots programs, long life learning courses, problem solving and student-centered pedagogy, and a science and research that tries to answer to the needs of the people. Well, these are some of the examples. Of course, not everything is like this, but there are some programs and some experiences that try to do this. So I wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think this idea of participatory budget opens like a new window into this conversation of co-design and co-production. And I wonder if there are questions.
And it's about participatory budget. Thank you very much. Super interesting. We do have in Uruguay as well this mechanism of public participation, the participatory budget. it originated in Montevideo, the capital city and department, and then after the decentralization law, it became like in every administrative unit of department of Uruguay where there are municipalities, this mechanism exists. However, I feel that it's still not enough recognized by the population. It's like not known. I don't know how it's there. And what my question is, what role has the Córdoba University played in giving visibility to this mechanism? And for instance, in a course where I teach and we look at participatory mechanisms, students were in the 20s and 30s, and most of them didn't know that there was participatory budget in Uruguay.
Yeah, I know that is a problem. Mainly in, so even within the university, not many people know that what is going on. So we have all these projects and experiences, and not everybody knows, because we are a very large university, and that is a problem in very large universities. So there are usually initiatives, but not everybody hears about them. And so what we do, of course, is what we do. I am not part of the management anymore, but it is on the web. There are lots of, well, mainly trying to make it visible in the networks. And maybe the people in Córdoba are not quite aware, but the people inside the province are very aware. So each time there are more mayors that go to Córdoba for all the meetings that we have, each time there are more people who are in the province that are interested in this. So it's, you're not a prophet in your own land. That is the case. And in any case, what I can say is that even Córdoba as a university in the Council of Universities in Argentina proposed that for the first time. So this was designed a long time ago, but it didn't really catch. I mean, probably the ground was not ready for these seeds yet. And because of the pandemic, because of this special rector that had a lot of leadership in the Council of Universities in Argentina, there are projects that have been started like this. So there is a movement. So we had a lot of relationships with Extremadura, the university in España, that has had that project for 30 years, I think, and they are the leaders. So we have tried to establish connections, and we have made outreach activities part of the compulsory activities of the students. So students are becoming aware that they have to work with some kind of these outreach programs, and there they get to know about the projects that outreach office leads. And but it's the same with the SDGs. Not everybody knows about them, so we are trying to have courses on the campus, the virtual campus, for everybody to take those courses as an, let's say, as an initiation in the concern for these problems. So there is still this culture of researchers that are bottled up in their work. It's very difficult to cross disciplines. It's very difficult to be aware of the politics that are involved in university, in higher education. So, but it's well, it's something that has to be fought, and it is discussed in the General Council. But still, there is some distance between the management. I mean, even the deans of the faculties. It's very difficult to fight against that, and even to fight against the styles of teaching and research in each of the faculties, because you know the disciplines also well fashion us in particular ways. So it's mainly that, making it visible, bringing more people, so people are starting to see that there are other people that are coming to the universities, but it's still a fight, a struggle that has to be put up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miriam, so much for the presentation. And this presentation for us, for me, is part of a conversation that we have started already. I think I have more than questions, 2 comments that I would like to put on the table. The first one is that I couldn't help noticing that the way you talk about your online cooperative course, collaborative course, how to run it, how to set the rules for that, and what are the benefits that those who participated gain out of it, were very similar to the way Mika and Ignacio were talking about the collaborative process in the film production or in general in the other. So that of course led me to the idea that transdisciplinary research is to a certain degree a pedagogical experience in skills, of course. But on the other hand, that especially for colleagues in the humanities like ourselves, that we are usually so obsessed with the large, big narratives that can be communicated across a lot of audiences, and hoping that somebody with the right creative mind, right? We need the Garcia Marquez of environmental writing that will create the bestseller that will drive everybody in one direction. And we are not paying attention that probably the way in which these narratives are going to impact has to do with the ways they are read, and being read in collaboration, being read in community, and shared in a different way. So I felt very moved by this idea of where are we paying attention, and in general, when looking at art, look at the kind of art that requires more interactive participation, which is not necessarily the kind of art that we privilege when we study art. The other one is Sarah's. I don't think we have done much opportunity to have impact on curricular changes, not even in the institutions we belong to. But thinking on an idea that Esteban dropped up this morning, Sarah's may be a shelter for graduate and undergraduate students that would like to work in a different way. And I'm thinking in terms of things that we can do in the future to think about also Sarah's for the benefit of undergraduate and graduate students as well. And as we develop a better relationship with colleagues that are coming from other institutions, see if there is a model that we can share among groups, or even be facilitators. Right? Having these international collaborations will be great. I may be able to do something with Clementino, with the benefit that a time difference is not too overwhelming for carrying these kind of things. So I wanted to put this couple of ideas on the table for things we can move forward. The third one, I don't want that much to get into academic gossip, but again and again, I see more willing to change in the institutions that we give credit to the institutions. And sometimes the things that stop the progress or the sources of pushback are other colleagues, not necessarily institutions. Other than if these policies do not go with a change on the way faculty and researchers are rewarded, which brings us back to the conversation in the morning. What the institution is doing with one hand is being undermined by the institution by what it is doing on the other hand. But that's an academic discussion that people usually don't like to listen to.
Yeah. What I can say about the impact, I think that when I was trying to organize this, I said, well, I'm going to speak about inclusiveness mainly, but all this goes together. I think that I have even taught in a graduate course that is on intercultural and language, interculturality and language. And I teach environmental humanities there because I think I say, well, you have to create a consciousness that there are others that are the non-human. So intercultural is making you aware of the other. So there are gender differences, there are sexual differences, there are so many differences that we do not take into account. And the species is, or the non-human is another difference. And the exercise of, I think that is so useful, even if it is small, it is not an impact. Not everybody is doing this. It has gone through the internationalization office. So it's very difficult for that office to establish its programs. It is something that, for instance, in the National Universities of Argentina has been fostered and encouraged by the ministry because they think that change in the pedagogy could come through there. So you start with that. And once you change, these are things that I have noticed in my students. Once they exercise their, they start thinking in terms of their rights, in terms of justice is not this little square I thought it was, that I have to think and I have to be responsible to think about this and that. I usually choose, well, that kind of fictional text. So they come different persons at the end of the, of course, it's very difficult to grade. Have they acquired really an intercultural competence? But I see things like that. For instance, if they have to work in groups, there are some students that are very competitive. And I really call their attention when, for instance, they had to work together and one of them takes a long turn and doesn't allow the other one that is a bit shyer not to speak. And I am very serious about that, and I interrupt this or that, even if the student is bright, I say, you have to share. So they are experiences that make them learn. And when you are with another culture, you have to learn how to negotiate, well, who takes care of these, the way of you are punctual, I'm not punctual, I'm late, or I take longer. And these are things that make you exercise, well, all these competencies and the exercise of choice. So the student-centered has to do with that. And the exercise of choice in those communities that have their own needs, and it's not the university that says you have to learn this. So they choose their needs. So I think that is the way that we can change things. Is we were discussing these things, if it is ideas that change the world or not. I think that education changes the world, not at the pace that we wish, but I still believe that you can. I feel that at the end of the year, they have a different, they are different persons. And even in Diplomatura that I have been teaching these 2 last months, I even changed the type of evaluation I asked for. And I say, well, and Azucena was delivering a conference there, and that created an impact, how she analyzed that ways of seeing things had to do with ways of experiencing the nature and how the art can convey meaning. And instead of writing a paper, which is the usual thing that we ask for, I said, well, you decide what you want to hand in. Either a project, if you teach at secondary school or initial school, well, you can choose a project that you can use in order to explain these things, explain things that have to do with the environment, things that have to do with the care of the other, biodiversity, or an audiovisual where you explain things that have to do with analysis of art. So those changes have an impact. And then they are teachers that apply this in their own, well, this is what I believe in, that education is a multiplier. So I think that it has an impact, even if it is small. But you still, yes, there is a lot of fight with this. So this is top down, and you, how did I start that with other, when I was in the international office, I tried to get, just like you, to get the people who are interested in changing their classes because they like it, not because they have the incentive. I know that it is unfair for the teaching profession, but they are interested because they want to do things, or because they want to be a better teacher or whatever. So what we looked for were champions from different faculties. And so they start, someone else gets to know about it, and then someone else and someone else. Well, it's just that. turning on the light and then someone else comes with a candle and take it somewhere else. I hope so.
Thank you. Somebody else? Otherwise, I have a question. And you've been working with the environmental humanities for a long time and with the theories on the Anthropocene. So I wanted to ask you, maybe what would be two main frontiers of the environmental humanities as a discourse, but also as a platform to develop in view of this necessity to include more communities and other types of knowledges? And
you asked about the frontiers that about using that discourse?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that it is, as I said, I know that there are lots of criticism about these ideas.
Not the Anthropocene as the discourse, but environmental humanities. What could be frontiers of to develop within the environmental humanities?
I am mainly interested, and I'm trying to find, and this is why I'm here, trying to listen to how other people, because for me in literature it's very clear. It's so obvious for me in literature, but I know that for a biologist, well, in spite of the fact that there are biologists here, for a geologist, I was speaking to a geologist last week in my university, and I said, yes, I understand this, but then when I teach the what do you call the layers of the earth, how do I explain that there are layers that have to do with the methodology? When you explain things in the other positivist or more experimental sciences, the thinking is more positivist, is more binary. So to get out of that thinking is so difficult. So I am interested in trying to see if there are methods that we can share, because we also, I fall into binary thinking at some times, and I think that is harmful. So one has to be really on the alert to be able to really discard, because we say, yes, there is no nature and culture, but we say, yes, the humanities are the sciences that study the human culture. So what is the nature culture we study? So all the time we tend, or at least I, tend to fall in the same track. So I think that getting together with scientists from the other disciplines, I think it's easy. With the humanities or the social sciences, is much easier. But I think the change also has to come with physics, with bioethics. I am very interested in, that is the next step, I think, because things are changing and there will be all this technology that will place us in the situation where we have to decide, well, how do we view a human being that has a, I don't know, a part that is, I don't know, that can download his mind in a machine, things that the people who are doing artificial intelligence are at that stage. So we have to think about all those things, and we have to find a way of speaking together with them. Just dialogue, but getting together and trying to understand, what do you mean when you mean that? Or have you thought about this? And see if we can construct that together.
Thank you so much. Well.